All right, Rob, just want to kind of, yeah, go through the wrap up of our time together through this program. Can you share a little bit about how this program was for you? What really changed? What kind of insights you had in these months with me?
Yeah, sure. For me, it was a bit of a journey, I have to say, because I was initially very skeptical around having a coach, or what a kind of like a business coach or personal coach actually meant.
Hmm.
And so for me, it was kind of, I felt like I was at that point in my business, which is like 2.5 years old now, that I kind of felt like I needed to kind of reinvest something back into myself. And I know that we kind of found each other very serendipitously anyway,
Yeah.
because of the white paper that you were creating and
Yes.
things like that. And for me, it's like I just had this natural rapport with you, and I felt like it was something that I get my head around, and the fact that how easy we could have these conversations, and like some of them were quite difficult conversations
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Yeah.
And but for me, from like a personal growth, but like reflecting like the last 3 months, is that was like I wish I'd done it sooner.
Mm.
And that's kind of quite an acknowledgement in itself, because obviously
Mm.
that you can only say that once you've been through something. And if you were very
Sure.
skeptical at the very beginning,
Yeah.
and I know that when we first spoke, I had very little time for myself, and it's like I just assumed that this kind of like this journey that I was on with my business, and it being, we're only a small business anyway, but I just assumed that that was, it was naturally kind of consuming me. And I
Mm.
think you've really helped me to kind of like step back so that I can kind of still be me, but kind of run the business, but
Mm.
in a way that it's not, like I am not my business, like in a
Right.
way to kind of separate and differentiate the two, if that makes sense. So to
Yeah.
allow some realization and reflection to know what I would need to do in order to kind of reinvest some time into myself. I'm very grateful for that time with you, because I think I mean, before we had even started, you had started kind of sowing the seeds with, what is it you do in your spare time? And
Yeah.
there are many more in-depth questions. And it just got me thinking that actually that was the one thing that I hadn't really done since I started my business.
Yeah. 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 That was clear for sure. And as we just discussed before this little recording, you also said that you felt or you thought that me time was just being at the office earlier, not having a meeting, just having that time to yourself. That was your
Yeah.
definition of me time at the beginning. And now you realize throughout this
Yeah.
process that it is that taking time off. It is that watching something for yourself before your partner gets home. It is those moments of running
Yeah.
and walking that you are really with yourself, and you get to reflect and just kind of re-energize. So that's
Yeah, it's
cool to
like
hear.
rebooting the brain almost. And
Yes.
I would almost say that watching something for yourself is probably something that you should do anyway. But for me,
Mm.
like a big reboot came in, allowing more time to have like exercise where I could, just kind of switch off. And
Yes.
I know some people go running and walking with headphones and things like that, but like for me, I actually, to just have that reflection time was really
Mm.
valuable, because it meant that I could kind of just kind of distill everything that was going on, and then think and strategize like how I can then approach things. So yeah, definitely having more me time, as in, like I now walk to work, and
Mm.
I know I've moved offices, but like that was part of
Mm.
the strategy as well. But
Yeah.
just giving me a little bit more headspace so that I could kind of think about and plan what I was going to do when I was going to work.
Yeah.
And then when I was finishing work, it gives me time to just decompress so that I can get home and not have to think about work. So
Yeah.
tiny little things like that, exercise as well, things like
Yeah.
that was something that I had kind of let slip for the last couple of years. And, I know we
Right.
had obviously the pandemic and things like that, but
Mm.
you get into bad habits,
Yeah.
and
It's
it's
just
about
getting that
realizing
mirror.
bad habit. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right. And meanwhile, the business grew rapidly and things changed quickly for you guys. The small team is very solid, and you're giving them more and more opportunities to really step up. How do you see
Yeah.
your role changing in these past months? Like, what happened for you in your role as, for instance, you were only a founder, but you're also a team lead. What has really changed for
Yeah.
you in your definition of who you are within the company?
Yeah, this was a really interesting one as well, because that was kind of part of our conversation as well, as in, you know, because you referenced me as like a CEO, and I used to just laugh about it. But I was like, well, no,
Yeah.
I'm a founder. And part of our kind of work together, and I know that we did a lot of custom things that, and you know, I gave touch points with my team for you as well, which was really super interesting. And I think for me, it was like, I don't think you could have 100% done your job with me if you didn't know who my team were. So kind of having small intersections where you could kind of get feedback from them and kind of understand from them, like how I was managing or leading them, was integral in how I can then be a better leader for those guys as well. So that was a really cool experiment, I have to say. And it was very cool that you were flexible to do that. And for me, it was just like, well, if you're taking me on, like you're kind of taking my team on as
Yeah.
well, but obviously
Yeah.
not in a kind of same capacity. But they're all personalities, and they all, you know, we all have to kind of, you know, work with each other, and you know, and there's a lot of moving parts to that as well. And I think a lot of our touch points helped us to kind of really understand what I would need to do better in order to be to empower them, for example, and stepping back and delegation. And you know, like I've been a leader since I was like 24. Like these are not new things, but when it's your own small business, like you feel like you're protecting them by not necessarily, you know, empowering them as much as you could do. And I thought I was, but there's definitely more room for doing that as well. And that's already started. I've already been running kind of experiments with how I can kind of do that, because yeah, like moving the business forward, like you have to be able to you know, run the business. You can't do everything. So there's lots of valuable lessons about stepping back, and actually less can be really more, you know, for those guys. And that's kind of what they're hungry for as well. So
and it's
really
a matter of trust too. Like it starts with you letting go of certain things out of your control, but trusting that they're in good hands with your team. And that is a process. And I think that you're doing that proactively, seeing what is happening and also seeing how you need to change in order to make it happen, to keep that growth going, because otherwise it's just an unsustainable situation where you are, you know, the middleman or the center, in which they are part of you. But you know, you're also now part of the team, and they are taking over things that you used to do in order for you to have more room for the bigger strategy, for instance, and to really have that time.
And I also think, and I think they also, now that I have like a bigger role in the kind of the bigger picture as well, like now, because, you know, and I think it was great to have your kind of independent kind of contribution and to kind of the conversation around like where the company's going. And I think it helped me kind of reinforce some things that I wanted to do as well, and like the way things are going. And I think that was really valuable as well, I have to say.
Interesting. Yeah, cool. And then as a last point, I'd be interested in hearing, there's so much that changed in the business and the moving parts of the business. And in the end, it all comes down to your decisions and who you are. And we just talked about me time, for instance, but is there anything that really changed in your way of being or your behavior, that something that popped up during our conversations, or an insight that you said, like, this is something that I have to tackle differently? Do you see that there's any difference in your own behavior in that sense, or your personal way of doing things?
Yeah, that was a good one as well. And yeah, for me, it's like, as a small business owner, like, you're always gonna feel like you're being challenged. And I think with the 3 months with you, Rochelle, it's like it gave me some perspective in that, there will always be things that are thrown at you, things that you have to deal with. And they're, you know, life's a test, right? It's like running a business is a bit of a test as well. And you have to prove that you can get through some of these hurdles in order to know that, you know, you can get through bigger ones in 4 years time or 5 years time, for example. So it's all about just kind of like that preparation for just, we're not knowing that we're doing it all alone. There's other people that are very similar to us. And I think that's where having a lot of our kind of sessions together made me realize that, you know, I didn't necessarily have to kind of tackle things on my own. And when we spoke about things. It just meant that I was able to kind of rationalize with a bit more clarity about like what things were happening and where things were going, and how I also needed to kind of plan and change like my strategy moving forward, but in less of a reactive way, but more of a in a control kind of way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, just having that vocalizing moment of what is really happening within you, and just being able to really talk about that and just put that out there probably already solves a lot of things, or just puts the puzzle pieces together in a way that you couldn't do in your head, because you really had to have that think time. So it's also fun to see how that changed. Yeah. Well, thank you for letting.
It's also funny and worth. No worries. I was going to just say, for the recording, like I am really jet lagged. That's what.
Yeah.
This is not the best look I've had in the 3 months, but yeah, we've just had a lot of travel recently. So, but
you look fine. You look fine, and I guess we'll do some photoshopping. No kidding. No, but I know that you're jet lagged. You're fine. Thank you so much for this.
A few hours, for a good couple of weeks for that one, I would say.
Oh, you're fine. Thank you so much for this.
No, thank you for that. It was a really enjoyable 3 months, and like I can't believe how quickly the bi-weekly touch points like went like so quickly. But I think that kind of showed at the rate of knots in which like the business was moving as well. Like it never felt like a long time in between. So it was update already.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks so much.
No worries.